March 26th here in Boston is Leonard Nimoy Day. And he was a really amazing person. I don't know if you guys have really looked into his life. I know there's a few documentaries out there and books as well, but a really, really interesting person who embodied, the epitome of being a scientist and using logic, right? He's, definitely as I go into my 30s, I love his character so much. I relate so much more with his character more and more, and he was a major influence in my life, in real life, the actual person, Leonard Nimoy. I had just joined Twitter, and it was right before he had passed away, but he was a cigarette smoker. And as I've talked about here on this podcast probably too many times, I used to be too. And he tweeted something. It was really simple. It was really short. It really wasn't like groundbreaking, but it was just, I knew the position he was in. He was sick for smoking as much as he did. And then he was basically like, look, like, not smoking in fresh air is like the ability to breathe healthily and like not with a restriction is a gift. Like, don't. And I'm sure I'm butchering. I'm sure that's not even what the tweet said, but that's what it's what it meant to me. And I think it was a year or so later, I had quit and continued not to smoke cigarettes. So he had a really major influence in my life that I'll never be able to thank him for. But he did stuff like that. I mean, what an amazing dude! It's so cool that we have Leonard Nimoy Day here in Boston because he's a Boston man too. So that's pretty great. We love that. We love repping the East Coast over here. The other thing I'll be talking about on our Instagram page or Facebook page or social media, Today in Space Pod on Instagram. But I've been trying to read more. I am reading Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy right now. That was given as a gift from my friend, which is super sweet. So thank you, Tim. And I'll be passing that book on to somebody else to read it, keep that going. But it's hilarious. And what's even more hilarious is my inability to actually sit down and read a book. If you're following my post on there, I think there's easily a week that it took me to read one chapter of that book. And it's not even so much that in college this was a major issue, and then I learned the skill of speed reading that really made a big difference in me being able to get through all the stuff I had to research and analyze before I could answer the question on a homework or a problem or whatever. So I had to make my skill of reading faster. Didn't have enough time in the day with my ability. But the real reason now that I learn going back, reading into books, and I usually do audiobooks, is my brain just spins like crazy. I was reading it's not the first chapter, but it was the preface. I was reading the preface, and my brain just kept going into all these crazy things. Sometimes, that's when I usually have a notebook, and if I catch an idea that I think is great, I'll write it down. So that's what happens when I first start a book. It's a bunch of distractions that my brain is playing on me until I actually sink in. So I finished the first chapter. It's hilarious. I mean, it literally feels like they're describing the world we live in today. Human beings being dumb and doing things for the sake of doing things, but not understanding why they're doing things. So I think that's amazing. The humor in it's hilarious. But I did it. I read a chapter. So that's yay for me. And of course, I'm still, if you've been following along, I said I was going to read another book last month, and then started another book before I even really cracked into that book. So yes, The Case for Mars I will also be reading and putting it up there so you guys can see that I'm actually doing it. But I want to talk about the books I'm reading more on this podcast. So if you have any suggestions, please reach out to us, todayspacepodcast@gmail.com, or on social media, todayspacepod, and of course on Instagram and Twitter, and then Today in Space Podcast on Facebook.